Purpose and happiness. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 353 of the Shower Podcast, the podcast where I'm in my shower and you do you. I'm your host, Chip, and welcome back to a new standard episode of the Shower Podcast, one of the few last that we will have together since we are 12 episodes away from the closure of season 1. Even though, again, I wouldn't really call it a season, but overall this year that we spent together. And today's episode is going to be, again, as I said, fully shower podcast style, because I will just go ahead with a stream of consciousness based on a video that I've viewed recently. I'll leave it in the comments in case you want to go and see the whole thing. I really encourage you to do if one of these topics that I'm going to mention will be of interest to you. And before we start, as usual, if you end up liking this episode, remember that liking and subscribing really mean a lot for me. They're just one click, but they really make the difference. Thank you very much for considering it. So, this mega episode that I watched was from the famous podcast, The Diary of a CEO. And in this case, it was a discussion between 3 people, moderated by the host. But it felt more like a talk between friends. And out of all the topics that were mentioned, some very much to my interest, like the ones that I'm going to mention in a few seconds, or some like spirituality and philosophy, which are kind of things that I'm interested in, but I wouldn't say are the focus at this time in my life. I would like to bring to you some considerations that I took out of the 3 hours and share them with you quickly. The 2 main topics that interested me and I think are of interest to any human being on this world are happiness and purpose. And by the end of the video, it's not fully clear if and where there is an overlap of these 2 concepts. Because on one end, many of the speakers there, and also myself, I believe that in order to find happiness, having a purpose helps drastically. A man with purpose, usually men, women, again, not to discriminate, but let's say a human being with purpose will find it very easy to define himself as happy. Because if you have to think back to moments in your life where you considered yourself happiness, I think there is a pretty tight correlation with this sense of fulfillment. Am I doing something that makes me happy? Am I doing something that makes me proud? And all of these are, let's say, emotions that will lead you towards that sense of happiness. The problem is that happiness is a very subjective feeling, because I could list, things that could have potentially purpose for people, relationships, career, money. Again, the more the merrier. But you could easily find somebody that, not that you know necessarily directly, but also in the, let's say, more broader term of people that we see on the internet or that we know of, that have all those things that, let's say, have matched their purpose with those objectives, and yet their life isn't defined as happy, be it by something that they are doing actively or the way that their life ended. Clearly, there was something that didn't go as planned. And what I would like to discuss, or at least argue with you today, is that many times the problem, as it always happens, stems from the definition of happiness. Specifically, 2 of the 3 people that were on the podcast, when asked this question, immediately bounce back with, well, it depends by how you define it. And here I believe that all of us are guilty of this, but it happens that we kind of force ourselves to go immediately for something bigger, to look for a broader definition that could satisfy a lot of scenarios in our life. Whereas maybe we should look first at what we have in front of us and understand if that makes us happy. I take myself as, being the host of this podcast, but more generally speaking, as a caveat for this kind of experiments. And I ask myself, actually pretty regularly, if I am happy. And my first instinct is the same as the other two gentlemen, to just try to ask, okay, but how do you define it? What do you mean? In which context? But at the end of the day, if I just have to look myself in the mirror and say, are you happy? My response will always be positive. Because looking at the things that I care about, I am fortunate enough to be in a position that I consider myself comfortable and, again, happy with all those things that, to me, represent happiness. At the start of the Shower podcast, I think it was episode between 10 and 15, can't recall. It's been a long time, but I made an episode about that. I had this feeling of joy, and I made that episode being happy. And I remember back then that I said that you need a few things in order to make yourself happy and just see yourself as that. And I still stand by those statements. I really believe that it's not that complicated to make it, to put yourself in a place in your life where you can say that you're happy. But at the same time, I also see the value, and I believe that there is something more to it. It's not random, and it's not simply philosophy that at some point people will try to have a bigger purpose. And that's when religion steps in. That's when mortality steps in. Concepts that are definitely way bigger than any single individual, and that span a bit more into the realm of what's the purpose behind all the things that I do? Why should I even care about this or that if all of us are, let's say, doomed, again in brackets, but to the same destiny, you know? And even though, indeed, that is true, we are all bounded to the same destiny at some point, there is still a subjective and, in my personal opinion, an objective truth, even though these things don't go well along. But again, I believe that there is an objective truth in matching, as I said before, your personal purpose with happiness, having that in your life. And once you are happy with that, once you are truly capable of taking away from it and making sure that it increases the mood, the way that you feel in every day of your life, then you can give yourself the benefit of asking yourself, okay, but what's the next step? But again, this is just something that happens way later. And focusing already on that and trying to do it backwards, I believe that it ends up hurting you more than it helps you. Having said that, that was all for today. Thank you very much for listening. And really, I I talked a lot and about a lot of difficult things. Proud of myself that I managed to have a single speech out of what I saw. It means that indeed something stuck with me. And I hope that by the end of this episode, you will be curious enough to also go look at the original one. As always, if you made it so far, thank you very much for listening. Feel free to interact with this content in any way, shape, or form by sharing, liking, commenting, subscribing. Whatever works for you works for me. And as usual, stay consistent, stay resilient. This was the Shower Podcast, and I'll see you tomorrow.